There's a lot of different ways that guys can manage wheat. And one can be they're going to go for grain only. The other can be that they're going to do dual purpose. So that would be a combination of grain plus forage. In Oklahoma and Texas, even in parts of southern Kansas, there are a lot of farmers that utilize wheat for a dual purpose standpoint for grazing cattle. And so I think one aspect there is, hey, pick the best variety for that situation. The other thing is to consider, again, is soil pH. Plant varieties that have got really good tolerance to low pH, if that's an issue for you. And if the variety that you want to plant maybe isn't the best on low pH, do I have the ability to utilize in-furrow starter fertilizer to help mitigate some of that? Am I planting on dry land? Am I planting on irrigated? So if I'm planting on dry land, am I in an area where I get higher rainfall, or am I in an area where I may be more prone to drought stress? Those are going to be things that I'm going to consider. Also, planting date. So I may get into a situation where I'm planting a little later than normal. In those situations, that's where I want to pick a variety like WB 4401 that's going to have really strong emergence. It's going to have a strong ability to tiller, and will just really excel in that later planting window. This is one of those that could go a lot of different ways because it depends on the type of weeds you have. So, if you've got a real issue with grassy weeds, the first thing I would do, and you're in a situation where you could crop rotate, I wouldn't plant wheat. I would plant another crop like sorghum, corn, soybeans, canola, and I would just take that particular piece of ground out of wheat for a year, clean up some of those issues, and then go back into wheat the following year. I think that's the most cost-effective management tool that you have. If you've got just broadleaf weeds, those are really fairly easy to control with products out there on the market. I mean, you could utilize a product like Olympus that's going to give you some good grass control, excellent grass control, as well as excellent broadleaf control along with a residual. So, other things to take into consideration is your crop rotation. So, the herbicide that I'm going to use is going to allow me to plant the crop behind wheat that I want to be able to plant and not get into an issue because of residual herbicides. But the key thing is if you've got weeds, you got to take care of them early and make sure that you have a system in place that allows you to manage the weeds that are an issue for you. There's a lot of tools out there for farmers on the market, and it doesn't really matter, if you're planting wheat, corn, soybeans. The joke is that the yield potential drops as soon as you open up the bag and dump it in the planter. So from that point forward, what we're trying to do is hey, Mother Nature's going to be throwing curveballs at us, and what tools do I have in the toolbox to protect that top end yield potential? And so here again, this goes back to putting the plan together. I think you've just got to budget in your herbicides and your fungicides and possibly even insecticides. But if I'm a farmer and I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, hey, utilize seed treatments from a fungicide, insecticide. That's going to give me the best chance to get an excellent stand. I'm protecting my seed investment. The other thing the insecticide component of that can do is help you from early season aphid pressure, which can turn into barley yellow dwarf problems later in the year, because we know that the aphids carry the barley yellow dwarf virus. Utilizing herbicides, utilizing fungicides, or even late season insecticides to protect the crop. How does a grower maximize his yield potential? Well, he needs to take a real hard look at their whole entire operation and just see, hey, where are there some things that maybe I could be more efficient? And one of the biggest things I see is around nitrogen management. So just, if a guy's in a grain only situation, trying to put at least 2/3 of their nitrogen on and no more than 1/3 of their total nitrogen on, no more than 1/3 of their total nitrogen at planting or pre-plant, and trying to utilize about the other 2/3 either in a single or maybe even a split application in the spring. The reason why that's really important is because the springtime is whenever the wheat plant is really determining that yield potential, and it's whenever it is utilizing that nitrogen the best and for top 10 yield potential. So nitrogen management is key. Uh, Choosing the right variety, number one, would be key. Making sure that you've got a variety that can handle that top end type management. Planning date. So I think that historically, most of our college and universities have excellent information around, what's the ideal planting window for yield and yield only. Back to the variety, making sure that I've got varieties that have got the straw strength and standability to be able to handle that high-end management. And then I think an absolute must is you've got to be able to utilize fungicides. So I know Oklahoma State University's done a long-term study around traditional management and intensive wheat management. And without a doubt, the biggest significant input decision that could have been made that affected yield was whether they used fungicides or they didn't. But a fungicide had the biggest effect on overall yield in that system.